Hello friends, we're going to do a simple Christmas ornament today using a compass and a couple of pencils. It's going to be really easy and beginner friendly. For this project we'll use two pencils, a lighter one, the light wood one which is an HB kind of, and the darker one which is like a 2B, plus a compass for drawing the circles for the ornaments. I'm going to now draw the base layout for the string shape that will be the basis of actually making these Christmas ornaments. And then once we do that, I'm going to mark out the points at which we'll draw the ornaments. The trick is to make it look at 3D is that the one closest to us will be the bigger one, the further end will be the smallest. It's better to make the bigger one first, otherwise we can run out of space. I've done it before that way. So it's much better to make the bigger one. I'm using my compass to actually make the circles. So I'm now drawing the little ornaments, and if you notice I'm drawing the lid shapes now. The lid is basically a rectangle shape and it will be topped up with a little half oval that will be the loop from which the string comes through. The ornament at the back can have the lid at an angle because the ornaments themselves are hanging in a circle, so obviously the lid and the string portion will be at an angle and not straight, so it will make it look as though the ornaments are hanging in a circle around the branch on the tree. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just indicating the string. We're not going to draw much of the string detail at this stage. This is more just drawing the string so we can get a lay of the land, so to speak. I'm now going to proceed to kind of work out where the light is coming from. Now the light here is coming from the bottom left of the portion, and so I'm drawing a little rectangle, triangle shape along the sphere, bottom sphere, to indicate the light. Now the opposite of light is darkness, and that's where the shadow or the darkest portion will be. Now in graphite drawing it's very important to have that contrast and show the shadow, etc. Things out in the back will be more shadowy and blurry. So the one in the front, the ornament in the front, will have like a sharp differential between the light and the dark portion. The one in the back will be mostly dark, mostly mid-tone. Just do the globe of the ornament. And just a bit of pastellation. You can add any amount of decoration. You can add more design features. You can add little arches. Go for it. Do whatever. At this stage, I've just done the pastellation. Again, back ornament, you don't need to do much. So just focus on getting the detail in the front and a blurry similar shape in the back. And the viewer's eye will calculate the same design, etc. in the back. That's the interesting bit. You don't have to do it all. So at this stage, I'm just working out more shapes and more shadow shapes out front, just adding more and more interest. And then I will get out my little blending tool very soon in order to start getting the work more. Now I'm using like a darker pencil to kind of do the lid shape first, of course, and we can do that. You'll notice that I'll continue to do this and continue to adding shapes as I go. I'm now starting to indicate the tree branches. Now some of the branches are going to be in front of the ornaments and some will be on the back. This ornament is sitting on a tree, right? All these ornaments. So we'll make it in such a way that some of the branches are half in and half front and half back of it. The one in the front, the ornament in the front, is what will really deserve all our detailing and hard work. So you don't have to do all of it on all the ornaments, okay? So we're going to draw more branches out front, and we're going to draw gently blurrier shapes out back in terms of the branch itself. Now I've got my blending tool out, my favorite tissue. And you can use a blending stump, you can use a cornichon, you can use anything, but a face tissue works just as well. Just remember to wrap it around your fingers so that it's a bit more pointed shape, especially in smaller crevices. In fact, use a blending stump or something similar. So now I'm picking up the darker pencil shapes. What we're going to do is, now that we've blended it out, obviously it doesn't look completely like a Christmas ornament, it just looks like little half circle shapes, and we're going to add much more graphite. If you're using color pencils, this is the stage where you can continue to add more and more color, blend it off, add layers of color. With color pencils or graphite, it's important to add a layer, blend it, and then add more layers. And it'll add a lot of depth and lot of visual interest to your drawing if you do that. Doesn't take much more time, folks. It just makes it much more interesting. Now the back ornament is much darker, and I'm adding most of it. I'm giving very little light, but in the front, if you notice, I've left the light portion, the lit up portion in the bottom left alone. I'm going to sort of color or put graphite around that. That's all that I'm doing here. And then we'll actually blend this out, and then surprise, surprise, add more layers of color. I'm still leaving that white portion alone. Later on we'll also erase some more to make it much lighter, but at the moment I'm just blending it out. Now when you blend the colors out or your graphite out, you'll notice that it looks a little bit dull, doesn't it? It looks a bit there. So what's the problem? At this stage it's not you. It's just that because at this stage the drawing needs a darker contrast and it needs light colors. Ideally, every composition should have majority about 70% of midtones and about 10-20%, 15% approximately of really light and really dark shapes. Now it depends. If when you want more drama, you can have a lot of dark shapes amidst very bright background, for example, and that adds drama. But in a regular composition, you need some mostly midtones with some amount of dark and some light. Now I'm adding more pencils to the darkest side. Just because we need dark, we can't just put it wherever we want. We're going to put it in the right place, wherein that is where the shadow is maximum. Now because these ornaments are hanging on a tree, we can't indicate a shadow on the ground, at least in this composition, so we're not going to worry about it. Okay, just by using the shadow that the front ornaments are throwing on the back, we're going to sort of make it indicate that way. So the middle ornament has a shadow from the front, and the back ornament has its shadow from the front two items plus the tree, etc. So that's what we are doing now. Now you can add many more designs here, and I'm going to add a bit more design here. I'm adding a little swirl here. You can add pretty much any shape. You can add a star, you can add anything, and I'm just using this because this is quick. Now another thing I did in order to indicate how the Christmas ornaments are in a circular pattern is I didn't put the same pattern facing the same way. So in the back ornament, the pattern's kind of sitting in the bottom, and in the middle ornament it's sitting to the middle, and the front ornament it's down a bit more front center kind of a thing. And the front ornament has much more design detail on it. The back ornament doesn't have that much detail on it. So again, we don't have to do all the hard work for everything. Just indicating in the front will help the viewer's eye look at the stuff in the back. So that's what I'm doing now. We'll then look at actually sharpening more of the details. We'll darken the patterns, the swirly patterns, then we'll add a bit more darkness to the lid on top. So I'm adding a bit more branches out front, and if you notice the branches in the front of what I'm doing the first, the way the pine needles are, the front ones, they're not actually really needle shape in that they have some thickness, some volume to it, especially when it's this close up. So that's why the front needle shapes are kind of big long cylinders. That's more like that. The back ones will be more needle like. So I'm adding more and more branches here. Now remember also that in the interest of not frying your brain, I've actually speeded up my video. When you do your drawing, it'll take more time, and please do take up your time. So in the front, I'm adding more and more needles, more detail work, and feel free to slow down the video if you want to see the leaf shapes, or you want to zoom with the YouTube videos. Now a bit more branches out front. I'm adding the branches just to add more interest around the tree, otherwise just Christmas ornaments are a bit boring. You need branches. With color pencil, you can use sap green for the tree branches and any different colors for the ornaments. You don't even, considering today's times, you don't need to have green for the tree. You can actually make silver or gold leaves if you're looking at it as a Christmas, just a plastic Christmas tree or something. So feel free, design-wise, to add color the way you want it. So I'm adding thinner leaves out back, And if you notice, I'm not doing the thicker volume shapes for the back leaves. It's going to be thinner and smudgier as we go out in the back. I'm just continuing to add some more thinner needle-like shapes. Now right in the back and in the branches. Now these branches are not sticking out by themselves, are they? They're part of a tree. So we're going to indicate the branches and everything. We don't have to draw every little pine needle. In fact, thank God we don't have to draw that. We just have to draw the few pine needles out front, and in the back they can just be little diagonal shapes. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just drawing fairly quickly on this and just making some shapes and things where you want to add interest. You can add this and you don't need to add this also. It's entirely up to you. But I just think having these leaf shapes make it interesting, make it Christmassy to look at, isn't it? Here it is. I'm putting some more oval shape on the top of the the square oblong lid thing, because we just need some volume, otherwise it's looking a little bit flat. So I'm adding a little bit of an oval shape with a pencil on the top lid, and then adding a bit more color or a bit more graphite in this case to the leaf shapes. There it is, and just adding a few more out front. I think it'll be nice to have a few more branches, isn't it, sticking out, just so that they're not all strapped up around the ornament. There's some stray branches here and there. Now I've had to darken the globes out front, because once we added the leaf shapes, obviously the ornament has become a bit more merging with the tree, and we don't want that. We want the ornament to stick out. We want them to stand out, especially in a monochrome medium like graphite. You want to make sure that you have enough tonal contrast, otherwise it'll all look really flat. It won't look interesting. So because we added those dark leaves out front, I'm adding a bit more graphite. If you have color pencils, you will of course have the color contrast, but remember that you need to add some of that. Now I'm also adding the edges now, and then clearing some light portion out for the, if you where the bottom of the ball is, if you notice, that's what I'm doing now. And I'm adding the light portion in the bottom right, and I'm also going to add a bit of shadow to the front globe where the leaf and the middle globe, like over there where the light is falling, I want to have a bit of a shadow of the leaves that are reflected on top of the globe. So just some design interest. You can continue to add more and more detail and interest, of course. I'm also taking the opportunity to blur out the background leaves, because I don't want all the leaves to be standing out so prominently. Background ones, that's why I drew them rather sketchily. I'm just blurring it out with a tissue, a slight amount of blurring, and then that way the design is not that very prominent out back, and the viewer's eye can rest in the bottom right. Now in terms of design composition, it's nice to have groupings of 3 or odd numbers. They're much more restful to the eye than 2s and 4s or even numbers. I'm now proceeding with the last portion of this painting, which is drawing the string. Just zooming in on my lastest little ornament, and then basically the string is little slanty shapes on top of each other to indicate the cord. So if you notice this, I'd already done the layout, right, of the string. You don't have to stick to that layout really, but it was there, and I'm just doing little almost slanty shapes on top of that line, overlapping each other, just to indicate that string or rope-like structure. Feel free to any shape that you want, but I think this kind of the detailing works well for a string look. Subscribe to my channel if you liked this video so far. I hope you're enjoying it. Thank you. Just continuing to draw the string right out at the edge of the paper. I've still zoomed my string in because I just wanted to show you how the detail is done, and also just to give you a little preview of how the drawing looks close up. We'll don't zoom out so you can see it all in its full glory. Now I'm drawing a bit more of a design element on the lid, like little arches, just because I think it looks prettier and I want to add more designs and a bit more detail. So this is the base layout. I've completed this drawing. You can add more details. You can add little arches to the tops of the Christmas ornaments. You can add more designs. You can add more leaves out front, hang little berries or other ornaments, etc., etc. But remember, as far as you keep the design principle of having more detail out front, keeping light, keeping shadow, and adding enough contrast, largely your drawing will look like what you want it to be. And then you can add more and more embellishments. And as promised, here's the color pencil version I made with sap green, yellow, blue and red. I actually used a graphite as the base and then added the colors on top. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you get to make a little card for your friends and family. Thank you.